Mike Wood here from ViperSharp. I'm going to take some time today to talk about apexing your edge. What does it mean to apex an edge? Why is it important when sharpening? How will it make your knife sharper? So those are some of the details we're going to talk about today. So let's talk a little bit about apexing the edge. One of the things that will happen a lot of times when you're sharpening a knife is you'll feel the edge, you'll think it feels pretty sharp, but when you cut with it, you're not getting those results that you really want. It's not clean, it's grabbing, it's not actually sharp. And so we want to have a sharp knife, right? And so we'll show you a little bit about apexing the edge on this. Get it in the clamp here. And I'll probably cut in and out a little bit just to save time so this doesn't end up too long of a video, but we'll see. It's always cumbersome trying to get around this camera. All right, so we've got the knife clamped in, we've got the clamp down tight. I'm going to start with a 250 grit diamond stone. And so we'll put that in the system. Give a little bit of oil on the stone there. And then we've got to decide what our edge is going to be. Sorry, not our edge, what our angle needs to be. So I'm going to come in here with a Sharpie and put that along the edge. We'll do it on the other side as well. So the Sharpie is going to give us an indicator so that we can see when that Sharpie is removed, where it's removed, so we can tell whether we're actually getting to the edge. So I'll try and get up close here and show you this so that you can see what is happening with that. And hopefully we can see what's happening there. And it looks like I am set at the right angle. So we can see that the marker, hopefully you can see that the black has actually come away all the way to the very edge. So let's just kind of zoom in there. There you go. See that? So the marker is being taken away all the way to the edge from the heel of the knife back here. We need to work up a bit, take away some more on the shoulder there, but otherwise it's doing a pretty good job all the way to the tip. Doing a great job focusing too, right? And we might have a little bit of work needed on that very tip, but that might just be residue. Yeah, I think it is. And that's important for me. I like to have my tip really sharp. I like to make sure that every part of the knife is sharp, and especially my tip, because I use the tip a lot when I'm using my knives. So back here on the back, we needed a lot of work on the shoulder, but the rest of this looks like it's pretty good. When I start sharpening, I'm going to lock in this back lock ring here so that the top of the stone is just not falling off of the blade, but we're at the top of the stone. And then typically I'll grab the the handle back here in the back and do this back and forth motion, and I often get into a circular motion. This is where I'm trying to just make sure I'm taking off as much metal as possible. I am not pushing down on the blade. You shouldn't put much pressure on that at all. Let the stone and the weight of the stone do the work. But here we're working with the most coarse stone from the ViperSharp kit and taking a bit of metal off so that we can get a good burr all the way across that stone. That lets us know that we have come all the way to the edge on this side. So we can check that simply by bringing our finger over the edge here. And until I get a real good, consistent burr, I'm not going to flip it over and work on the other side. And so I'm just going to keep working this. We're working on S110V here, so it's not your average stainless steel, not soft, definitely a hard steel that will take several passes. I'm not counting my strokes. All I'm looking for here is to create that burr. Make sure your thumb screw on the back is nice and tight so you're keeping that angle where it needs to be when you start working. On that tip, I don't want to round the tip off, so this is where a circular motion is really a good idea. So I come around like this, come back down. I'm only going about halfway with that blade, or going this way. Again, I'm only using half of the stone. I'm not rolling over this way. You can see all the metal coming off of there. It's a good idea to clean that stone every now and then with a little bit of oil. Get all those metal shavings off of there. Better to do this with a cotton rag or something like that rather than a paper towel. Re-lubricate. Go back to sharpening. Keeping that oiled and keeping that stone clean will help you get results faster. I want to use as much of the stone as I can without going up and scratching the blade. So, of course, you've got to be careful about that. If you're new to using the ViperSharp, then you might want to start with a knife that you don't care about too much. That way you can get comfortable with that rhythm and know that you're not going to be damaging the blade. Now that's a pretty good burr. And I don't know if you can hear that. But you can definitely hear it when you're sharpening. If you just put your finger on there and pull, and you are going to feel it. And like I say, I want that burr all the way from the heel back here through the middle of the belly of the blade all the way to the tip. We're doing real good, got a real heavy burr about the first half there. This back half heel of the blade, not quite as much. It's a little bit of a burr, but I'm going to go ahead and work that some more to get that to burr. Okay, so we've got a good burr there. So now we want to pull the clamp out, turn it over, and do the other side. Now, to give you another demonstration, if you've got a burr on here, it's not going to cut real great either, although that is cutting better than what it was before it was sharpened, but it's still pulling on that. So now we're going to flip that over. We're going to do the other side. You'll notice that you've got the burr because of the sound of the sharpening too. When you come against this burr, you'll feel it and hear it grab more aggressive because that metal is folded over. And that's what a burr is. A burr is when you have the edge, if this is the edge of your blade here, that tip is folding over the metal just a little bit. And so you get a little bit of a fold, and we need to come sharpen this way and pull that back out. Now what I'm looking for here again is to apex my edge, which means I want to make a burr on both sides, because I know I've gone all the way to the edge on the other side because it folded the metal over and gave me that burr. Well, now I want to do the same thing on this side, because if I know I'm doing that on both sides, then I'm really sharpening my knife. I've created the burr on both sides. This is not an area where you want to rush things. You don't want to be sloppy. You don't want this to be quick necessarily. It's going to take some time to make sure that you're doing this right. So give it the time that it needs. Wasn't sure if I can tighten that down. Give it the time that it needs so that you are getting the results that you really want. Generally, once you've created a burr on one side, it's pretty easy to repeat the process on the other side. Feeling it right there, not at the back yet. Through the belly, out to the tip. So again, it's just that heel of the blade that I'm really working on now. The rest of that is burred pretty good, if that is a word. Burred, past tense of creating a burr. And something interesting to think about too, typically when people tell you to sharpen against your blade, that's because if you sharpen pulling away from the blade, you're creating that burr. So we want to do this back and forth motion initially when we're sharpening so that we know we are creating that burr. Removing the burr would be just that one direction like that. Again, we're good for the first half of the blade. Got a little bit of a burr right here, but not really at that back. So if I want that to apex, then I've got to make sure I've got a burr all the way on the back. So we're going to work on it a little bit more. Got a burr, but it's not quite as big as it is on the rest of the blade. So I'd really like to make sure that we're pretty consistent all the way across. All right. there. Take that out, and so again, it's grabbing because it's got the burr on there. Now we want to remove that burr, and let's watch the difference just by removing the burr. So we've apexed the blade. Now we're going to move up here, grab that knob to finish this. Now we're just cleaning off that burr. You can feel it as it goes away. You can hear it as it goes away. The more you sharpen, the more you'll recognize those things. Just give it a stroke or two on this side. Or 3. All right, so now we've apexed our edge. It's cutting pretty smooth all the way across. It's still a rough cut because we're just at 250 grit. But that's how you apex the edge. When you can get a good clean cut all the way along your blade, you know that you have done the right thing, you've apexed well. Then you can move on to the higher grits for sharpening and refine that edge.